What's up guys, ArchAngel Manga here, and this is episode 2 of Tezuka Season. A series of videos where I take a retrospective and chronological look at the works of Osamu Tezuka, going from his early days, with Mysterious Underground Men, which is like way back in the 40s, all the way up to his, his last works that he was working on in like the 1980s, and his sort of Gekiga-influenced works, mostly in the 80s. Today's episode, or episode 2, we're looking at Princess Knight, part 1 and 2. Probably one of the first shoujo that I've read, funnily enough. I don't really own a lot of shoujo, and I think probably the best way to really start and get into it is, from obviously the master of manga himself, Osamu Tezuka. Okay, so Princess Knight. This edition of Princess Knight is actually Osamu Tezuka's reworked version from 1963 to 1966, which he reworked 10 years after its original publication from 1953 to 1956. So the art style, his art style is a lot more developed in comparison to his earlier works, and I noticed a very significant jump in quality of art. Especially from going from his 1948 publication of The Mysterious Underground Men. This work is much more signature Tezuka, in terms of his style, and he's really sort of come about his own, judging from the he reworked this in the 1960s. So yeah, basically Princess Knight obviously is a shoujo, and it's basically set in like a medieval Europe-like fairy tale setting. There's lots of sort of fairy tale stereotypes, like big castles, magical elements, things like that. But it's all used to its like maximum effect, and Tezuka, being a brilliant writer that he is, he manages to put in darker tones in the story as well. And talk about the story, might as well give the story overview. Princess Knight follows a princess called Princess Sapphire, and Sapphire has a bit of an issue. She has a boy heart and a girl heart due to an angel up in heaven who kind of was getting up to a bit of mischievous antics, and gave the baby that was to be Sapphire a boy heart and a girl heart, or an extra heart. So when she was born, she had the attributes of male and female. She was born a woman, but she still had the heart of a man. And the kingdom which she was born in, kind of has very traditional misogynistic laws, which decide that princesses cannot govern or rule a kingdom. Only a male heir can take over the throne, and be king. So because she's born a female, she's automatically exempt from taking the crown. So what the king ends up deciding is announcing to his kingdom that he's fathered a prince, and basically it's a story heavily revolved around gender swapping, cross dressing, that kind of thing, and basically Princess Sapphire having to grow up as a prince and basically fool her entire kingdom and the villain of the story into believing that she is actually a male and a princess. And talking about the villain of the story, is the Duke Girolamo, and he's got ulterior motives himself to make his own son the king, and his son, Plastic, is just like a really sort of stupid, whimsical, baby-like, childish boy. Who just doesn't have any qualities of leadership whatsoever. So yeah, basically the story revolves around Princess Sapphire having to hide her true identity while Duke Girolamo and like his sidekick Sir Nylon try to conjure up different various schemes to try and uncover the identity of Princess Sapphire and prove that she is actually a female. So yeah, that's basically the sort of the basic starting plot. That's basically where it starts off. But the plot does actually develop from there. It isn't just one scheme after another of Duke Girolamo try to uncover Princess Sapphire's true identity. you know, it does get to a point where Princess Sapphire has to, you know, is thrown into exile, and Duke Duralumin ends up, you know, kind of taking over the kingdom. Princess Sapphire comes across, you know, different friends and different foes, and has to go through trials and tribulations, you know, whilst in exile. You know, and you know, for the eventual goal of, you know, going back to her own kingdom and reclaiming the throne for herself. You know, the throne that is essentially inherited to her. So yeah, you know, there's a lot of more characters introduced. You know, obviously we have Princess Sapphire, the main character. We have Tink, who is probably one of the most important characters of the series, because if it wasn't for his meddling, you know, none of this would be happening for Princess Sapphire. Tink is basically the angel who gave Princess Sapphire a male heart, and due to his meddling, God sends him down to Earth, you know, to retrieve Princess Sapphire's male heart. And when he gets down to Earth, he's given, you know, a frail mortal body, and you know is tasked with the mission of reclaiming Princess Sapphire's boy heart, so he can, you know, get entrance back into heaven. And Tink becomes somewhat of like a protector and pursuer also of Princess Sapphire. You know, and he's quite an interesting character. Then we have Prince Franz Charming, who is a prince from a neighbouring kingdom, the neighbouring kingdom of Goldland, Princess Sapphire's kingdom being Silverland. And he serves as the primary love interest for Princess Sapphire. Prince Charming, you know, falls in love with Sapphire, but he falls in love with Sapphire through Sapphire's different alter egos. Like Sapphire dresses up as like a flaxen-haired maiden, or you know, he's like she becomes like you know, like a knight savior, like superhero sort of thing. So Princess Sapphire ends up meeting Prince Franz, you know, in sort of different characters that she has to play, you know, different sort of roles that she has to play in order to, you know, hide her identity. So yeah, he's also an interesting character because he serves as like, you know, a central sort of love interest for Sapphire. Then obviously we have Duke Duralumin, who's like the main antagonist, who, you know, he's you know, he can conjure up these schemes, you know, pretty well, but when it comes to the execution of them, being like him and Sir Nylon end up being, you know, very bumbling and, you know, quite stupid, and you know, basically everything kind of, you know, falls back on him. You know, everything kind of takes a backflip, and you know, ends up being the downfall of him essentially. And then, you know, there's lots of other characters, you know, like it's like supernatural characters like Madam Hell, like a witch who tries to tempt Princess Sapphire, you know, various different means. Satan makes a cameo appearance. We have Hecate, who is the daughter of the witch, who ends up you know, actually helping Sapphire. And then we have like various other, you know, sort of like secondary and tertiary characters that basically, you know, help Sapphire or try to put, you know, hurdle in a way, you know, just along the various journey that she takes. But the most important thing I think about this manga, because, you know, for all intents and purposes, the story is quite simple. The true appreciation of this manga comes from the themes it deals with. You know, Tezuka is definitely no stranger to putting forth his own personal opinions on like certain issues, and for a manga as early as this, you know, the themes and issues that it deals with are still very hard hitting, especially for a shoujo or children's manga as well. You know, there's when I started reading this, like I could definitely feel a sense of like deceptive androgyny, because obviously Sapphire flicks between being a man and a woman like constantly, and you know, she does have this real androgynous look about her. Like, she's got a real like, cute face, but at the same time, like, she acts and, you know, puts herself forth as like a man, you know, who can like sword fight and things like that. So there is this overarching theme of like deceptive androgyny, and like, you know, like gender role expectations, you know, like what role should like the woman play, what role should the man play. And I don't know if it was just because of the time, but I don't think Tezuka really you know, really well put forth like some of his ideas, because, you know, he puts forth like feminist ideals of, you know, like women, like the woman taking the forefront and the woman being strong, but like on the other side of the same coin, you know, it's kind of cancelled out by the fact that you know, some of the themes he deals with, or some of his opinions, like, come across as quite sexist. In that being that it's only the male heart that Sapphire has that gives her strength, and anytime that she ends up losing it, she becomes weak and fragile and really sort of like girly and like shutting herself and becomes really vulnerable. So you know, I think that in you know, to an extent, it's quite sexist. Whether Tezuka at the time was aware of that or not, you know, is unbeknownst to me. But that's just how it comes across today. You know, given that it's a very old manga. But overall, the manga was very, very enjoyable. You know, it's good to see more of like Tezuka's, you know, signature flair shine out in this work. You know, I would definitely highly recommend it to anybody who's like a fan of like, you know, post-war era shoujo manga, or just post-war era manga, you know, anyway. You know, the art style is, you know, very endearing. You know, Tezuka employs a lot of uses of, you know, sort of shoujo tropes, like, you know, like lots of roses and flowers and glitter and, you know, things like that. Because I believe at the time this was penned, Osamu Tezuka was heavily involved with, you know, like shoujo manga itself. So yeah, it just shows how versatile of an author he was, and that he could basically explore any demographic or any genre, and you know, bring about its, you know, bring about his own sort of artistic flair within that, and you know, obviously it worked, you know, to some extent. So despite you know, some of its negatives, you know, with, you know, some ideals being quite sexist, I think you could basically put that down to just it was the times. You know, I wouldn't you know, I wouldn't use those negatives as a reason to, you know, basically not, you know, not invest your time into this manga, because it is definitely something worth investing in. You know, because of its historical value, and also because it is an actual genuinely, you know, fun read. So yeah, that's been my review of Princess Knight. You know, maybe a little bit more brief because, you know, I didn't feel like there was much really to discuss. But I'm currently reading through the Twin Knights, which is this manga's sequel, but was also published before this was rewritten. So look out for that review coming like in the next week or so. You know, obviously this is Tezuka season. Be sure to check out the Tezuka season playlist that I've set up specifically for this, you know, series of videos. Yeah, so that's me for now. Look out for episode 3, ArchAngel Manga, signing out.